What if I told you that the invention of a single weapon changed the course of human history, toppling empires and forever reshaping the way wars were fought? Guns, those mechanical marvels of destruction, didn't just change warfare. They paved the way for the modern world we live in. Stick around, because today, we're unraveling the explosive story of how firearms changed everything. Our story begins in 9th century China. Picture this. A group of curious Chinese alchemists is trying to create an elixir for immortality. Instead, they stumble upon something far from life-giving: gunpowder. This accidental discovery, made by combining saltpeter, sulfur and charcoal, led to the creation of rudimentary explosives, which soon gave rise to the earliest forms of guns. The very first guns were hardly what we imagine today. By the 10th century, the Chinese were experimenting with bamboo and metal tubes to create fire lances. Essentially, they were primitive flamethrowers that could blast a mixture of gunpowder and projectiles at enemies. And by the 13th century, the gun had evolved into something a bit more familiar: hand cannons. These short, barrel-like weapons, usually made of bronze or iron, were dangerous to operate, but they marked a crucial leap forward. The secret of gunpowder didn't stay hidden in China. Thanks to the Silk Road and the constant exchange of knowledge, it made its way to the Middle East and eventually to Europe by the 13th and 14th centuries. European armies, quick to adopt new and effective means of warfare, began experimenting with handheld cannons and arquebuses, a type of early matchlock firearm. Here's a wild fact. The word gun likely comes from the Old Norse name Gunhildr, which means war, and it was adopted by Europeans as these terrifying new weapons entered the battlefield. Early firearms, like the matchlock, required a lit match to ignite the gunpowder. While revolutionary, they weren't practical in rainy or windy conditions. Imagine standing in the middle of a battlefield, trying to keep a tiny flame going while arrows or enemy swordsmen closed in. But necessity, as always, drove innovation. The 17th century saw the invention of the flintlock mechanism, which used a piece of flint striking steel to create a spark, igniting the gunpowder. This made firearms more reliable and easier to operate, allowing for the rise of musketeers and the slow decline of traditional medieval knights. Now here's where guns begin to change the world on a geopolitical scale. European powers, equipped with ever-improving firearms, began to dominate the globe. The Spanish conquistadors famously used guns to conquer the mighty Aztec and Inca empires, despite being vastly outnumbered. Guns, combined with steel and disease, allowed a few hundred men to bring down entire civilizations. In Asia, firearms changed warfare dramatically. The Ottoman Empire was one of the first to master the use of gunpowder weaponry, and in 1453, the fall of Constantinople was due in large part to massive cannon fire. The event marked the end of the Middle Ages and the beginning of a new era. The Mughal Empire in India and the Tokugawa shogunate in Japan also relied heavily on gunpowder technology to unify and rule vast territories. Jumping forward to the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century, firearms underwent another massive transformation. With the advent of precision manufacturing and mass production, guns became more reliable, accurate, and deadly. The invention of the percussion cap and the repeating rifle revolutionized warfare yet again. The American Civil War was one of the first major conflicts where both sides had access to these advanced weapons. Soldiers equipped with rifles that could fire multiple rounds in succession changed the face of battle, leading to devastating casualties and tactics that became increasingly brutal. And then came the 20th century. The First and Second World Wars saw the rapid development of automatic weapons, submachine guns, and assault rifles. In the trenches of World War I, the machine gun turned battlefields into slaughterhouses. By World War II, the world was introduced to iconic firearms like the M1 Garand and the AK-47. In fact, the AK-47, designed by Mikhail Kalashnikov in 1947, remains one of the most recognized and widely used assault rifles to this day. The AK-47's design is so efficient and reliable that there are estimated to be over 100 million AK variants in circulation around the world. It's a grim testament to the gun's simplicity and effectiveness. But guns didn't just change warfare. They changed societies, politics, and economies. The American Wild West wouldn't be the same without the Colt revolver, known as the gun that won the West. The ease of access to firearms created cultures centered around individual defense and self-reliance. Meanwhile, nations with advanced gun technologies often wielded enormous geopolitical power. The arms race between the United States and the Soviet Union during the Cold War wasn't just about nuclear weapons. Both superpowers poured resources into developing cutting-edge firearms and military hardware, leading to indirect conflicts worldwide. Today, guns remain a topic of intense debate and controversy. In some places, like the United States, the right to bear arms is written into the Constitution. In others, strict gun control laws exist to prevent violence. But one thing is clear: the history of guns is intertwined with the history of humanity itself. They've been tools of conquest, instruments of defense, and symbols of freedom or oppression, depending on the context. So what do you think? How different would the world be without the invention of firearms? It's a sobering thought, isn't it? If you enjoyed this dive into the history of guns and want to see more fascinating stories from history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Thanks for watching, and remember, history isn't just about the past. It's about understanding how we got to where we are today. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep making history.